introductory or warm-up activity, we're going to have the kids to do Pac-Man, and that's to increase their heart rate. And to play Pac-Man, the students have to be on a basketball court, and they can only move on the lines. They can walk, they can run, but they can go any direction, but they must stay on those lines. And once they're out, once they're tagged, they're out. After students have been tagged, they will play the game the exact way, but after they will play it with hopping, such as this, or and then they're going to do sidestep, which is this. And so after that, once we finish the last game, we'll gather the students all together, and I will lay out these 4 labels: A through G, H through M, N through S, and T through Z. And so I will have the students use their first letter for their last name and have them jump to their category. So like my last name is Jones, so I would jump to the H&M. And someone with the last name Hudson would jump in the same group. Now after everybody has jumped to that certain group, we're going to have everybody alphabetize themselves into that section. For example, Hudson and Johnson would go before me, and King and Moore would go after me. So the alphabet that will be done by jumping and no talking. So they kind of have to know each other's last names for it. After all the students have done that and are in the correct order, I will first have A through G hung up, and I will give the students little note cards that have little words on them, like apple or goat or anything like that. And without talking, the students must work together to alphabetize themselves into a order. So like apple would be the very first person, and guy or maybe goat would be at the very end. And so once we have gone through those and fixed any mistakes we've seen, we will move on to H and M, N and S, and T and Z, using different hops and different jumps. And for our closing activity, we will have the students tell us what they've learned and what's the process of how a dictionary works, and if how they have a certain word they need to find, how they are able to find that.
So for our lesson, our measurable objectives pretty much is about our students, and they'll be able to perform locomotor skills such as jumping, walking, hopping, and sliding. As we go further into the lesson, they'll be able to perform them properly. They will also be able to alphabetize correctly and be able to, the teacher will be able to observe this throughout the entire lesson and throughout the entire activity as well. Their prerequisites, they have to know how to actually alphabetize to begin with. They also need a basic knowledge of the locomotor skills, as they will practice it throughout the entire lesson as well. For materials, they need alphabet group sets. They also need a set of words for when they go into their groups, and they have to alphabetize without talking to each other. This helps the focus. It helps the students grasp the concept of alphabetizing, but it's actually through physical activity instead of sitting at their desk and taking words and putting them in order. Because sometimes they can kind of write their alphabet down and just kind of match it up with the letters. This way they have to physically move through the lesson as well. As for our assessment, the teacher will walk around as the students are alphabetizing with their groups and they're not talking to each other, so they have the answer sheets for all of the groups. So per se, they go to group 1 and they watch group 1 start to work together, and once they have their final answers, group one's paper will now be checked off. Okay, they got this group, or they got this section, this section, this section, and they'll get scored based off that. Another way to do some sort of a formative assessment instead of an actual written down grade is the teacher will be able to walk around and observe the students as they're actually doing the physical activity, as in like hopping towards their last name letter group. So they'd be able to kind of observe and kind of maybe say, okay, they got it or not. But there is no formal rubric for that one. It's more of a formative assessment for the teacher.